did a lot of work on this, showed it to us. We talked about it a bunch. She'll have this out on her own social media later, just as a little bit of a guideline for what we kind of expect at each level, which players have been asking about.
Yeah. Now, chat is continuing to ask questions. They have many questions, but one of them is about game changers. So with these updates to the brackets, are there also going to be any changes to the game changers list?
Wow, Blake. I'm so glad you asked. It's like you know what we're talking about today. Yeah, there are some updates to the game changer list we're going to be talking about today. So one of the things I talked about in the last article that we wrote is we're going to be looking at the philosophy for what makes a game changer a game changer. And that's actually one of the big things we talked about while folks were out here for the Commander Summit, is what is the philosophy around game changers. And there's two things that we kind of wanted to pull back on the game changer. So we started out with like only a small number of game changers. It was about 40.
I'm going to interrupt you because I just want to stop chat from going off in this path. Are there any bans or unbans?
There's no bans or unbans today. We said previously there will be no bans or unbans this year.
Yep.
We're not going back on that. You can start to expect us to talk more about that next year. We did talk about that a bunch. And I will say there is, toward the end of this video, there's some ban and unban related discussion.
But nothing is
actually happening. We're just going to talk to you about some cards we want your opinion on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Game changers list, yes, changing.
Yes.
Bans, unbans, not changing.
Okay, let's see what they're doing now. What are y'all doing now?
On that path for a bit. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Good call out there. Okay, so we want to talk about some around the philosophy of what makes a game changer a game changer. We did a bunch of discussion around that. We started with about 40 or so of them when we rolled out the system.
Yep.
Then we added in a bunch more, and our general feeling is we went a little overboard, right? We tried to correct for being a little too low. We overshot a little high. Now let's bring it back a little bit. And there's kind of two kinds of cards categorically we want to roll back on. The first one is expensive, high mana value game changers.
Sure.
In Commander, there are so many cards that are 7, 8, 9 mana. That if you cast them, the game is going to change because you spent 8 mana on them and it's a rare or something like that, right? There's plenty of those out there in the world, and the delta between the best one and the next best one is not that gigantic, and there'll be tons more of these in the future, right? So we wanted to kind of pull back on that and really focus game changers on a lot of the lower mana value cards that are the ones that come down early and really warp a game around them, right? Because ultimately, if your opponent casts a spell on turn 8 and it ends up crushing everybody, you're like, well, yeah, it's turn 8. That happens. But if they cast a card on turn 2 or 3 and it snowballs your advantage really fast, that's where it really feels like, wow, you're playing at a different level than me.
Yeah.
The second thing we wanted to kind of categorically look at is commanders. And I referenced this a bunch.
Let's do the individual cards first.
All right, so let's bring the 4 cards that are coming off. Here's 4 cards we're taking off the list. Expropriate, Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur, Sway of the Stars, and Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. I'll kind of talk through each of them a little bit here. So Expropriate, incredibly powerful card. If you've ever been on the receiving end of this, it's strong because basically what happens almost every time is you vote for an extra turn, everyone else votes for steal a permanent, and you end up with an extra turn and a permanent from everybody else. It's really strong. But it is 9 mana. You're allowed to do pretty powerful things at 9 mana. It also exiles itself. You're not looping stuff. And a lot of the brackets do call out extra turns, right? So if your deck is built around looping extra turns, you can't even do that at the lower brackets. So it's less of a concern. Jin-Gitaxias, same deal. It's a 10 mana card. Yes, you can reanimate it. It can come into play early. Yes, you draw 7 cards, but also a removal spell takes it down, all that kind of stuff. And 10 mana, once again, it's so pricey. Sway came off the Game Changers list, or came off the ban list, excuse me, earlier this year onto the Game Changers list. At the time, we were like, we're not really worried about this card being a problem, but let's see how it plays out. And so far, I've heard of very little reports of this card being problematic. And at 10 mana, I think it's well within the Worldfire range of like Worldfire is not a game changer. This is part in the same category. Vorinclex is very much in a similar vein. It's annoying, it's frustrating, it does some mana denial stuff. But at 8 mana, once again, I mean, green can ramp into it a little bit. That's strong, but also you can be casting Nyxbloom Ancient and all kinds of cards by the time you hit that mana value. So we wanted to kind of pull back on some of these. And there's a couple notable ones that we did not pull off, and we'll get to those a little bit later. I'll talk about those a little bit and the reasons why we didn't touch them at this time. But now, all right, so now we can talk about the second category.
Now let's talk about the next category, Commanders.
Okay, great. So when it comes to playing Commander, there's one thing you know before the game starts, and that is the other people's commanders, right? You're always gonna know what that is before it starts. So it is the easiest thing to have a pregame discussion about and talk about, or be like, hey, I just don't feel like playing against that today, right? And so we want to draw some lines over what makes a legendary creature on the Game Changer list. And kind of where we landed was, if a card is unfun or really strong in the 99, then that's still eligible to be a game changer. So for example, Turgrid, really unfun, strong in 99s of discard decks. That's staying on the game changers list. But there's some that we wanted to pull off that we think are pretty fine in the 99s of a lot of decks. And so it's someone's commander, you kind of know what's up if these are someone's commander. So let's bring those up on screen here, and I'll kind of talk through them. These are the 4 cards that are coming off: Urza, Lord High Artificer, Yuriko, the Tiger Shadow, Kinnan, Bond of Prodigy, and Winota, Joiner of Forces. Kinnan has a lot of infinite mana combos that you can do.
I mean, these are all heavy hitters here.
They're all heavy hitters, and these see play in CDH, right? They're very powerful cards. But if your opponent sits down, their commander is Yuriko. Like that's a great time to prompt that conversation, have that pregame conversation about, hey, what is your deck trying to do? And if it's the same thing every other your deck is trying to do,
it's probably always the same shit.
For. And if it's, hey, it's actually a really goofy, unique theme, let me tell you about it a little bit.
They're enabling people now.
The other thing is, it's a really cool 99 card, right? There's a lot of people that would love to have this ninja effect in their 99 of their blue-black deck. We don't want to take that away from people, right? There's plenty of decks that would be interested in these in the 99. Urza being a good example of it being a really fun and exciting, strong card in the 99s of Artifacts decks, but not necessarily a game changer. Urza is definitely one I think that probably had the most debate around it, if it met the criteria or not. We're going to take it off at this time. But Urza's, I think maybe the one that is most on the line. But we thought it was worth pulling these guys off. And now they're free to be in your 99s. If they're your commanders, it kind of once again starts that pregame conversation about what deck you're going to play. So,
all right. Next category is not a category.
There's also so there's 2 other cards we want to take off the game changers list, just because we overshot on them a little bit for 2 pretty different reasons. I think we'll just put them on the screen. I'll talk about what they are and kind of why they're coming off. So the first one is Food Chain. Now, Food Chain has a really strong pedigree history of combos. Right? There's tons of combos with Food Chain. You play this in Prosh, and you're golden, right? You're good to go. The thing is, we put it on there just to be like, oh yeah, it's a combo card. We'll put it on here. But if you're playing with the Game Changer system and brackets, there's already rules around combos governed into what you can be doing, right? So we felt pretty safe around taking Food Chain off at this time, because also there are some fair things to do with this card as well, and we didn't want to have it on there unnecessarily. Noting that, yes, all the rules for combos still apply. So,
what rules for combos? I don't understand what that means.
That's not a thing you should be doing. Deflecting Swat is a card that I think we just overshot on a little bit. We're like, free spell, strong, Fierce Guardianship on list, Deflecting Swat 2, and it's just not as strong as Fierce Guardianship. Countering a spell is much stronger than being able to only be able to hit some spells. Yes, you can get bonuses if you redirect a divination or whatever, a draw spell to yourself. I'm not saying that Deflecting Swat is weaker in all scenarios than Fierce Guardianship, but it is a card where a lot of the time it doesn't quite work the way you want it to.
It needs a specific.
Just take out brackets 1 and 2. Fuck that bullshit.
It's a lot weaker in a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
Also, color identity plays a non-zero factor too, right? Like red having this ability is a lot different from blue having a free counter spell on top of everything else. So we're pulling these cards off today, and those are the cards that are coming off the Game Changer list. That's the entirety of the Game Changer list changes for today. I also want to call out that we kind of recognize this is we started with a bunch of cards on the list. We had a bunch of cards on the list. Today we're taking 10 cards off the list. It's a lot of change. We think we're getting pretty close though to what the right list is, and we think in the future we won't have as large scale changes. Well, unless we have a strong philosophy change, we want to have our commanders look kind of like this or what have you. I think in general, we'll be looking on the scale of a handful of cards, not upwards of 10 cards like this changes.
Now, again, and this is a future thing because there are no bans or unbans today, but is the philosophy still if a card is on the ban list and gets unbanned, it gets moved to the Game Changers list?
Absolutely. That's still the philosophy. I think that's kind of just good practice we want to do. Let's just always slide that down. That's a nice fail-safe, and I think it's just the right process to go through on these cards. I think it will not be uncommon in some cases for that to happen and to fall off, like Sway of the Stars did today, for example. Sway we thought was pretty safe. We unbanned it. It was totally fine, as far as we can tell, and we moved it on down. But I think it's still just good practice to go through.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier, too, that there were some noteworthy cards that were staying on the list that sort of fit some of the definitions you were talking about. So let's talk about those. We've got another graphic for some of these.
These are 3 cards that were kind of on the line for us, and I want to talk about why we left them on at this time. Consecrated Sphinx was really on the line. We were pretty split on if this card should come off or not. Kind of where we ended was 2 things. One, the difference between 6 and 7 mana is pretty gigantic. So we're We're like, this is 6 mana, not 7. We'll leave this on here for now. The other thing is there's this clone interaction with Consecrated Sphinx, which really is a wacky thing that happens in games where if an opponent clones it, which frankly among 3 other opponents is not that uncommon, you kind of just get to collude and draw as many cards as you want, which is a little funky. But we're interested in feedback on all the cards on the screen. So if you think this card should come off, we'll be looking at it for a future update. We kind of wanted to see how this initial round of changes went over. Cloistered Victory does fit the definition of an expensive game changer. It is an 8 mana, 5 color card.
Yeah.
The difference is it does win you the game instantaneously.
Magic the Gathering
and it's very easy to put in
announcements right
any
now
5 color
on
deck.
Twitch.
It also just came off the ban list, and we haven't had that much time with it.
Trying to
Unlike Sway of the
understand
Stars,
this
which
stupid
I've heard
bracket
very
system.
little happening about. I have heard about a handful of Cloistered Victory wins and it being a pretty big deal in games. So I think this was one that has a decent chance of coming off at some point, but we want to leave on for a little while longer. And kind of that same thing goes to Panoptic Mirror, right? A lot of the rules around combos govern if Panoptic Mirror is going to be a problem or not, but it's still pretty fresh off the ban list. It's not as clear of a move as Sway of the Stars. I think there's a decent chance all 3 of these cards could come off the Game Changer list at some point or another. But we kind of wanted to make this first round of changes, get your thoughts on it, see if you think these cards should be pulled down from Game Changers. But yeah, all 3 of these are certainly kind of the next in line contenders under the changes we talked about today.
Okay. Now, there were, as we talked before the show, a couple of topics that the group talked about, the Commander Format panel discussed. Some of that is still in the works, and we're not going to bring it up today, but there were a few items that I know you want to discuss.
Yeah.
The first one being Rhystic Study, which is always a topic of conversation.
Yeah, so there's kind of 4 things we're going to talk about today and cover in the article. So the first 2 are about cards that are certainly hot topics in the world of Commander, and the first one being Rhystic Study. So Rhystic Study is a very powerful Magic card in Commander. It has, I think, become near synonymous with the format. Sol Ring, for many people who start naming Commander cards, you might name Sol Ring and Command Tower and Arcane Signet, and then Rhystic Study, right?
Yeah.
Do you pay the 1 is a huge meme in Commander. This is a really powerful card that can really warp games. I know especially at some of the higher brackets, CDH, for example, it's a very warping card. It's also an Omega iconic card. It is a card that, once again, when you think of Commander, you think of this card. We talked a lot. We did some early kind of like BNR discussions about what we want to do. And kind of our current philosophy on this card is it's just so iconic and so beloved by a lot of players, as far as we can tell, that we don't want to ban it at this time. But we want to hear opinions on that because over time we've heard a lot of things.
Leave it alone. Just let it rock. People cry too much. Stop crying.
Want to open the hey, over the next couple months, let us know what you think about this card. It's possible that there's a large contingent of people out there at the casual level who actually really do not enjoy this card that we just aren't hearing from.
Yeah.
And so we really want to be able to get some extra opinions around this card because if we were ever to take action on this card, it would be a really big deal for Commander, and we don't want to do that without getting a lot of community feedback in.
Oh my God, don't do it. Yo, you know how much money we invested in?
Obviously, social media is always great. You can ping us on social media. Obviously, many of the content creators out there will be making all kinds of videos around these topics in the days to come, I'm sure. But a great place is our community Discord. On the official Magic the Gathering Discord, we have a whole channel set up for Commander. That's always a place that you're welcome to go put
Discord's
stuff in.
being updated today to get some channels for these kinds of discussions. So definitely head there today. It'll be set up to tell us what you think about Rhystic Study and other changes.
And yeah, the great thing is, we have our community managers monitoring it, and then they kind of roll all the feedback you write there and send it all up to us, so we get it all in there. So even though you might not see me posting in there, we get updates from them on all the stuff we talk about, which is really great. So shout out to the hardworking community managers of Wizards of the Coast.
Absolutely.
Okay, the second
don't
card,
fuck
very
with
much
Rhystic, bro.
In a similar discussion vein, is many of you could maybe guess it. It's Thassa's Oracle. This is a very interesting situation. Thassa's Oracle, of course, 2-card combo with Tainted Pact, Demonic Consultation. It's kind of the premier win condition in CEDH. So when we, well, I say we, but this was long before I worked on Commander. When Flash was banned years ago, it was kind of you can ping us on social media. It was a huge problem in CDH. The whole community, CDH community generally felt like, hey, we want Flash to go. And it saw. Please let us know what you think. And I'll say as far as communication channels go. So it was a decision that made a lot of sense to the rules committee at the time. Like, hey, CDH doesn't want it. It's not seeing any play in mainline Commander. Let's get it out of here. Thassa's Oracle is a bit more of a wrinklier situation. From what we can tell, and we are open to feedback on this, CDH seems kind of split as to if they like this card or not. Some people like it, some people don't. We'd love feedback from the CDH community on this. We really welcome it. And also, we don't have an idea of how much is seeing play and just really casual games, right? Like, is this 2-card combo really oppressive at bracket 3 and bracket 4, which are more casual focused, right? In bracket 2, of course, it's ruled out because Thassa's Oracle is a game changer already. Or players aren't using the bracket system. Is this happening at your in-home games? Would love to hear from you. Like, is this a frustrating thing? Are you happy to have it around? It's a card that we're really open to feedback on. Once again, our general position with bans is we prefer to really just use the game changer list where possible to monitor this stuff. So we don't really want to ban unless absolutely necessary. But we'd love to get more feedback on this card. So for both Rhystic and Thassa's Oracle, we're definitely currently in the not planning to ban camp. But we really want to hear your feedback on it. Right? It's possible that there's going to be a lot of opinions that come out over the next few weeks as folks are talking about this that are like, no, please, there's a huge upswelling to actually get rid of these cards. So we're going to be listening to you, and listening to the community is really important to us on these things. So,
no, leave it alone. Don't fuck with it.
Want to hear from.
All right, the
Collector
next
items.
topic, again, another long-time topic is...
Can I intro this one a little bit?
Yes, please.
Okay, so before putting graphics on screen, I want to intro this a little bit. Because this is, sorry to cut you off, Blake, but
yeah, you're good.
This is a long-standing Commander topic, right? This has been in the Commander discourse for, please let us know what you think. And I'll say as far as we talked through a lot of potential obviously rules social media is always great. The rules committee was here. And maybe, this is the one I think had the most discussion around it, and is the one that I want to float to the community, because I know a lot of folks have talked about this a lot. It is a thing that would open up a lot of cards to be played in decks, and also do some pretty cool things for Magic design as well. And that is hybrid mana. Let's go ahead and put it on the screen. I'll kind of talk through hybrid mana for a second here. So when we were designing hybrid at Wizards, we treat it as an or, right? We're very much like, you can put this in a green or a white deck.
Right.
So that's how we design it. That's how hybrid is designed. So with Rhystic Redeemed, we're like, great, this card can go in a green or a white deck. That's how it works. And these days, when we make hybrid mana cards, we make them under the color pie rules of both colors, and often they're weaker than monocolor cards because they have to. Other color can play them. Commander is the place where that or is suddenly treated as an and, which is strange. It's kind of the one place where that's true. And there's just a lot of cool cards that are locked away under hybrid. There would be awesome tools for monocolor decks. We're always looking at ways to make monocolor decks stronger. And getting access to, say, Kitchen Finks in your mono white or mono green deck would be like a really cool thing to have access to. We've also been coming out with more hybrid recently, and there's more hybrid to come in the future. And letting players have access to those cards, I think, would be a pretty cool thing for us to be able to do from a design perspective. It opens up a lot of things. And then from a Commander deck building perspective, it's just cool to have access to a lot of these cards. So I want to talk through a few of these examples on the screen. So the proposal would be that strictly for the purposes of deck building, and only the purposes of deck building, you can treat it as though it is an or. So Rhystic Redeemed here could go in a green deck, a mono green deck. It could go in a mono white deck. It could go in a white red deck or whatever. Or it could command your green white deck as normal, right? Yeah. You can choose which you want for it to be. When it's on the battlefield, it is still a green white card. If you play it in your mono white deck, it is still a
and I also want
to.
I also want to, just because I'm seeing where chat's going with this. This is Gavin talking through a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Not making a rules change today.
Right. I want to be clear. These are all things that we are asking your opinions on.
Yes.
Right. We want to hear from you. That is the whole point of why we're telling you. We're like, instead of just making changes, let's hear what the community thinks. Right.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a point of discussion, not a change being made today.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Great. Perfect. And so we would treat it as an or just for deck building. On the battlefield, they would still be exactly what it is. If you had Hydroblast in your deck, you would kill a red-blue hybrid card or something like that.
Yeah.
This does not, going to the example on the right of Deathrite Shaman, this does not change what you need to do with the symbols and text boxes. So Deathrite Shaman is still locked to a black-green color identity card. Right?
Yeah.
This is a card that you could not put in your deck if you're mono-green because it still has a black mana symbol on it. That still works as intended. And then in cases like Two-Brid in the middle, like Beseech the Queen here, we call this Two-Brid in Magic design. We could make it work a number of different ways, but I think the most intuitive way is just it's treated exactly the same way as an or. If you want to put this in your deck and cast it for 6 mana, or maybe you do some stuff with Gilded Lotus to be able to cheat it for triple black at off color, we would let you do so. I think that's our inclination. So we discussed this a lot as a format panel. And some people were like, this sounds great, let's go for it. Some people were a little more hesitant. We've talked about this a lot on the design team. So really what we thought is like, hey, there's been a lot of discussion around this. Let's open it to the community and be like, hey, we're really looking at this seriously. What do you all think about it, right? Would it be cool to have more tools for your monocolor decks? Would you be like, oh, that's kind of weird to have these rolling around? It could be, we're really interested in your opinions on this.
I mean, based on chat, it was just yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. It's definitely something that people are split on. But yeah, head to the Discord and we can have that discussion.
Yeah, we'd really love to hear from you on this one. And yeah, I think like I said, it gives us, it would give you a lot of cool monocolor tools, both now and in the future, some extra cards you can play around with.
Yeah. All right, we are nearing the end. We do have one more topic we want to touch on, but before we get to that, we do have time for some questions. So
well, there's also the fourth.
We're
gonna get there.
We're gonna talk some more.
Perfect. All right.
We are gonna talk some more, but I want to give, if you have questions, it helps me to tag them as @Magic, and then I'll start watching chat now. And then once we hit questions, we can start running with them. So
you're so good at this, Blake. You're just teeing up to get people
just
ready to send questions.
I'm just teeing things
I
up
should
here.
never question the pros. Never question the pros.
All right. What's our next topic, Gavin?
Okay.
Before we get to questions.
This is the fourth thing I want to talk about. We've heard from the community a decent amount. There's some interest in a sixth bracket, another bracket. And we talked a lot about if we wanted to do this and how we wanted to do it. And kind of there's two places. What we don't want to do is get into like, we're adding a ton of new brackets, and we're back to having like 10 points on a scale. And the more granular you get, the smaller groups there are for each individual bracket. It makes it harder to find games, your bracket, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we are very keen on looking into maybe one more bracket. We don't really want to go above one more. And there's kind of two natural places to put it to us. And I guess I'll say before I say this, our hope is also that, by the way, with these changes, some of the changes we're making today, like decoupling precons from core, bracket 2, some people will move from bracket 3 into bracket 2 a little bit. There'll be a bit of movement happening there, and also some of the information we gave about brackets, what we expect. We think there might be a little bit of movement around that might help some of the people that felt a little stranded.
Yeah.
So maybe we might not need to add a bracket at all, which is also why we wanted to wait and get your opinions. Anyway, there's two main places we think we could put it. And it's between bracket 2 and 3.
Yeah, let's put the bracket. Yeah, there we go.
And it's between bracket 2 and 3, and between bracket 3 and 4. And there's kind of two different things happening here. The first, I'll start with between bracket 3 and 4. We've heard from some players they want to be able to play with unlimited game changers. Like, I want to play all my cards that are awesome, unlimited game changers. All these like big, powerful, swingy cards. But I don't want it to be as fast as optimized often is, right? I don't want it to be like, wow, the game is over really quickly, or selling just mega combos. I just want to be able to play all my favorite game changers. So that's I've heard that a number of times from players. Maybe that's the place we should put it. The other place we could potentially put it is between 2 and 3, right? There's people that are like, well, I want to play with no game changers still, but I want a little higher power level. Or maybe put it a different way, I want to play with game changers, but keep kind of the power level of 2. There's two different ways you could maybe strike that, right? And so we're interested if we do add a sixth bracket, kind of where we put it. And so we're interested in community feedback on should we add a bracket, and if so, which of those places would you want it to show up in? Because we've seen some discourse around this already, but kind of focusing it on that basic question of should we do it and where should it go, I think will give us a lot of good feedback. So please let us know what you think. And really what I kind of want to set the expectation of in general with this whole conversation is before we make some big format level decisions, let's get your opinions on them, right? Like Commander is a community format. We want to hear what the community has to say, right? That makes a lot of sense. So please send us your stuff, post it in the Discord, put it on social media to us. If you're a content creator, make the videos. I'm sure we'll be watching so much content over the next 2 weeks, I cannot even tell you. So please, I encourage you to have these discussions and bring it back to us.
All right, let's move on to some questions from chat. First question up is about Phyrexian mana. So we talked a little bit about hybrid mana, but we didn't throw in Phyrexian mana. Do you view it the same, different? Any thoughts on Phyrexian mana?
We did talk about it. I think we decided that like you have to draw the line somewhere, right? Like Fierce Guardianship should not be able to be played in any commander deck, despite the fact you can cast it for free, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And Phyrexian mana is still designed to be that color, right? Where hybrid is very clearly designed to be either color, right? That's how we make all the cards these days. So being able to splash, say, Gut Shot in your mono-white commander deck feels a lot more transgressive than playing your white-green hybrid color, where it is already intended to be able to go into white decks in your mono-white deck. So no, we would not be touching Phyrexian mana at this time.
All right. Any progress with the Silver Bordered project?
Yeah. So the Silver Border project is still something on our radars. What I'll say is, actually, if you want to go ahead and pull that graphic back up, Rachel's graphic back up, one thing we're really hoping for is that with Exhibition, that is a great place for a lot of the silver bordered cards to live, right? Like we
Yeah.
want to really be clear, like, yeah, this is the place to do things that you wouldn't normally do, right? If yes, technically there's no game changers here, but if you have a thematic one, put it in, right? If you're building around an uncommander, this is the place for it. And we're hopeful that a lot of the decks that would want to use silver bordered cards will end up living in that space. I know that's not everybody. I know there's plenty of people who are at bracket 2 or even 3 that are like wanting to play with silver bordered cards. And if you're not familiar with the silver bordered project, it was basically being able to go through all the silver bordered cards and list out which ones could be just cards you could play in your decks, more or less.
Yeah.
Still thing on our radar, something we're looking at, but we've had a lot of other things we've been talking about. So something on our minds, but no update on that today.
All right. Any more discussion on banned as commander?
Yeah, we talked about it a bunch. We're always wary of how many lists we're creating and how many cards would go on that list. The number of cards that would end up being banned as commander is incredibly small.
Yeah.
We're open to feedback on it for sure. When we talked about it most recently, we were not super interested in banned as commander, but I'm always open to hearing more feedback on it, right? So if there's a strong community movement, we can go for it. Just there's so few cards I think that would actually go on that list.
Yeah.
For example, some folks would argue, hey, just put Urza on banned as commander. That'll solve that. But I don't want to take it out of the game. Some people really enjoy playing that card at bracket 4, even though it's not maybe a commander we love seeing as much at bracket 2, right? So I think it's only a handful of cards that would actually go on that list. I do want to recognize the otter in the room that everyone loves Lutri. I get it. There's a lot of Lutri love out there. Maybe some other options for that card someday. But I don't think just creating a banned as commander list for like 3 cards is really great.
Yeah. All right. I'll just read this question straight up. First player in turn order versus fourth player win rate differences are massive. The average fourth player has half the win rate of the first player.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's exactly true or not, it sure feels pretty true. Any plans to address this?
Well, I'll say we actually did talk about this during the summit. Mm-hmm. I'll admit that, as it turns out, 3 days is not nearly as much time as I thought. We had so much to talk about and dug into these topics so deeply, we did not get to fully talk about that. But it's something that was on our radar, and I want to shout out.
I don't know. I think it's bullshit. I think people need to stop crying.
On the forum,
I
think hey, I really want to make sure that we talk about this.
I'm gonna address this one,
especially at like CDH levels. It's a much larger deal.
Fucking got excited.
So it's something on our radar. We talked about a number of solutions we could look at some points, ranging from should there be like extra mulligan bonuses or whatever, but certainly nothing anywhere close to fully baked or anything we'd want to talk with you about this time. So no, I have nothing for you at this time, but I'll say it is on our radar and something that I think we know is noticeable at the higher levels of Commander.
All right. What is the timeline for when feedback might lead to decisions? For example, when might there be a change made for Rhystic Study? I mean, I'll say we were discussing this right before the show. Actually, we've got some dates in mind, and we'll call it Q1 2026 right now, but we're still finalizing exactly what date we're going to look at.
Yeah, I think in the article I say you'll know before the end of February.
Yeah.
Which. I think that's pretty reasonable to say. Maybe Blake will check the dates and be like, actually, no, Gavin, that was wrong.
It could be January, it could be February,
so.
but it'll be in that space.
Right. So basically, I guess for a timeline for us, what we're looking for is, I know how the Magic community works. We're going to get a whole fire hose of feedback over the next 2 weeks, probably, and especially over the next week. And then we'll be looking at it all a bunch. We will talk about it over the next month or two, and that'll prime us up perfectly to come back in January or February with any changes we want to make, right?
I will note, so just a little plug for some of these things too. There's a Command Fest in Las Vegas this upcoming weekend. There's a Command Fest in Tacoma, Washington the weekend after. And then I forget where they're at, but there's 2 Command Fests in the first week of December as well. Those are going to be good places to try some of this stuff out and then come back and tell us about your experiences.
I think one of them was Command Fest in Australia, so shout out to my Australian homies.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Would hybrid changes include DFCs like Archangel Avacyn in mono white?
Oh, that's an interesting discussion. I want to keep the focus to just hybrid at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a change we're talking about making.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting one. I think that is one we could talk about more than Phyrexian, but I think there's a lot of cards you could potentially talk about. I think you keep it to just hybrid, where the cards are very much designed for it literally has a white symbol partially on there as half of its mana as an optional mana cost.
Yeah.
I think is where we want to keep that discussion focused. So
yep.
Yeah, a good note, but a hybrid is I think the only one we're looking at this time.
Any thoughts about splitting CEDH and Casual Commander with different ban lists?
You know, that's something that has been discussed, right? I think we're pretty interested in having all of Commander under one umbrella and not creating just tons and tons of different lists.
Yep.
But it's certainly been discussed.
Okay. Let's see. All right. With a return to Strixhaven, lessons appearing in Avatar, and companions already working in Commander, is there any chance of sideboards coming to Commander?
Yeah, that was on our discussion for our discussion for the summit. We talked about it a little bit. We had a bunch of other stuff we were trying to get through, so we didn't really finish that discussion. There's a lot of logistics that come around with the sideboard. Some things include, if we allow for wishes to work in Commander, it means every Commander deck to be optimized should have a wish board, because what if someone radiates a cunning or whatever, plays Sway the Star, what's that card? Eye of the Storm and Cunning Wish or whatever, right? Where other players are copying it. A lot of weird stuff like that starts happening. Also, people have to carry around extra cards. This can be a whole thing. With that said, like, I'm a Wish lover. I love Cunning Wish and Burning Wish. Are some of my favorite cards. Have always tickled me. So the idea of getting them to work in Commander would be really cool. But there's a lot of challenges that go along with that too. So I do think that's the thing we'll investigate at some point. But I would expect that investigation, I think, more likely than not, to turn up with no changes. It's possible. It could be something at some point or another. But I will say it was on our radar. The number of topics we were able to touch on briefly at the summit was pretty high, and it's actually pretty hard to hear the community be like, oh, what about this? And I'm like, oh, we actually got to talk about that a little bit. So.
We'll stick with the color conversation. So any conversations about off-color fetches? So, using like a flooded strand in your blue-red deck.
One thing that's really important is that formats have rules, and ultimately there's going to be cards that feel a little weird within those rules.
Yep.
But you can't start making exceptions for every single card. So hybrid, like, is a thing where it's like categorically, it's easy to look at and be like, this mechanic, this mana symbol works in a certain way now. But if you start looking at fetches, suddenly you're like, okay, well, what about Urborg? What about Yavimaya? What about all these? Should Kurdape be only allowed in green-red decks? And then it's a path that makes things a lot more confusing. And we don't want to walk down that. So no, I think there are no plans to change that part of how things work. And overall, and I end the article with this, and you'll see when the article goes up. Commander's awesome. It's like doing great. We're really happy with Commander. We're looking at a handful of small tweaks and changes, but I don't even want to make things overcomplicated. And I think the Kurdape, the Kurdape thing, the flooded strand thing, whatever, does that to some degree.
Okay. I do see a question we can answer pretty quickly, asking about changes to the Game Changers list. Yes, we made changes to that list today. It was only cards being taken off.
Yep, and that'll be an article that goes about 11 a.m.
Yep. So in about 15 minutes, that'll be up. Seen a couple questions about any discussion of Planeswalkers as commanders.
Yes, we had a lot of discussion around Planeswalkers as commanders. I did not get into it in the article because frankly, the article was getting along and I wanted to keep it focused. That's something I might get into at another time. But I'll say that the TLDR of Planeswalkers as commanders is that doing future ones and tagging them with things like this can be your commander, maybe even looking at other alternatives for what that could look like, a symbol on the card or something, who knows? Could be a thing that we would talk about. But making all Planeswalkers commanders.
Oh, man. So I'm not trying to talk when he's talking because I want to hear what the hell he's saying, but my ADD is on 1,000.
And we really wanted to listen to that, right? We wanted to have that conversation with them because it was a thing that at Wizards we were like, wow, Planeswalkers are big to our game. It would be interesting doing this. But after hearing the format panel's concerns, we decided to kind of take those pretty seriously. I think some of the concerns, just to let people out there know, one is that just how much life it takes out of the game, right? It makes everyone's games take longer. And that gets compounded by the more Planeswalkers you have, right? Imagine sitting down at a table with 2 or 3 Planeswalker commanders. That's a ton of life being taken out of the game, which makes the games take a lot longer. There's a handful of older ones that would be pretty big problems. We'd have to kind of touch right away. That's a big issue. So it also incentivizes board sweeping decks, right? If you're playing Planeswalker Commander, the best thing to do is fill your deck with 9 board sweepers, which also makes games take longer. So that's just a handful of mini arguments that were made, but there are no plans to do that at this time. Although, once again, seeing more Planeswalkers that are designed to be commanders in the future is very much on the table. So I think you'll see plenty of this could be your commander style things in the future of Magic. Just not retroactively making all Planeswalkers commanders. That would be, that'd be over 300 cards becoming commanders, which would be one of the biggest changes in the history of Commander. It'd be a pretty big deal.
All right. I've seen a number of questions in this space about the number of turns, specifically its effect on Aggro and Voltron. So I'll read this question. So Aggro and Voltron decks are already very disadvantaged archetypes in Commander, and being unable to knock out a player until turn 6 in bracket 3 feels very restrictive. Is there any chance this restriction will be revised? I feel this pushes an already battlecruiser heavy format further in that direction.
Yeah, definitely true. We talked about the Voltron thing a little bit when we were making this graphic. You know, we made this graphic to be directions for what we expect to show up in that bracket, right? Nothing is hard and fast. You know, you can always talk with your table and be like, hey, I've got a more aggressive deck. I've got a Voltron deck here. It's capable of doing this. It's a great thing to be able to talk about. This is also, and the article goes into this a little more, but like, it's not like if your deck ever does this, it's ineligible.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what you should expect to happen. Obviously, combinations of cards or perfect draws with Soul Rings or whatever can allow for sometimes wilder stuff to happen. In general, I will say, though, that the majority of Commander, people do want to play a game that has some length to it and not die super fast. So I agree. Aggro decks are disadvantaged in Commander, and they're not as widely played. But there's not really a lot of, I mean, that's kind of just true in the format in general, and kind of what people expect. So when people sit down to play, a lot of folks would be bummed out if they died, but on turn 5 in bracket 2 or 3. So I agree that is disadvantaged for those decks, and I think it's a good conversation to have with your table. But that is kind of the nature of those archetypes.
Yeah. Any chance we'll see more Eminence cards?
Well, then let's just put my designer hat on here. Eminence is really powerful. It's really powerful. It walks a fine, narrow edge. We did do one more after, and to be clear, I created Eminence, so it's my fault. We did do one more after C17, right, with the Knights Precon with March of the Machine. So it's not impossible. That card I think worked out pretty well. But even then, that card is not super strong, and it is a very popular commander for Knights. So I think you could see some in the future, but it'd have to be a very, very, very careful designs. I have a couple ideas of fun Eminence things we could try, so I don't count Eminence out just yet, but I don't think you'll be seeing tons of it in any case.
All right. Would there be any chance for poison counters to be more than 10 for Commander? This has also been a long-standing discussion.
Yeah, I think, long-standing discussion. I think maybe there's kind of two challenges with that. One, I'll say the big one, which is I love adding things into Commander. I love being like, for example, if the hybrid change were to happen, you just get a lot of new tools to play with. That's great. I love unbanning cards. You just get more tools to play with. That's awesome. Something that really, really makes me skittish, I think makes a lot of people on the format panel skittish, is when it's like, hey, your deck no longer works. Hey, the thing that you put all this time and love and energy into does not function anymore.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have built their poison decks very carefully, and if you suddenly raise that cap to 15 or whatever number you choose, it dramatically alters how your deck plays. I'll give you a great example. Another thing we talked a lot about at the summit was commander damage, right? And commander damage is this extra thing you have to track. It's not everyone's favorite thing to do. A lot of times it's like, I just don't want to deal with this. But if we were to suddenly say, hey, commander damage is removed, that's a whole category of deck, right? Voltron strategies that just stop functioning, or at least function at the same level. So I think, to be clear, I think we can look at other changes to commander damage. We have maybe some ideas that we'll talk about at some point in the future. But we don't want to just take away people's decks' ability to function. So for that reason, I think the poison change is less likely. I think we could talk about it. The second point I was going to make is if we ever do poison as a major set mechanic again, like we did with Phyrexia All Will Be One, I think we could talk about that a little bit more, but not at this time.
Yeah. I will note I'm seeing a bunch of good questions about Magic generally, or competitive play, or different cards and stuff. We are going to focus on Commander just because we have Gavin here and we have so many questions on this very topic. Not to say any of your questions about anything else are not good questions. We're just going to focus on Commander today.
I love talking about Commander.
Yeah. Let's see. Chat's moving too fast for me to keep up with it. Are there going to be any changes or more detail to the no mass land denial rule? Not all land denials are the same strength. Some are much easier to deal with, like Harbinger of the Seas.
Yeah, we. I think in the original article, if you go and look at the original article outlining brackets, or on our website now, actually, some folks, I should want to call this out, by the way. This is in the article too, but some folks have been asking for like a source of truth of the newest version of the brackets. There's actually a piece of our website on the Commander format page on the Daily MTG website that has all the current bracket rules there, and it'll be updated shortly after the article goes live with the updates that we've made today. And I think if you go look at both the original article as well as that, it'll have some information around mass land denial. So there are some things around that. Ultimately, it gets just really really ticky-tacky to start being like, okay, here's all the different rules you should look at for what makes a mass land denial spell. Blood moon effects that are on creatures are fine, right? You start going down this well, and it becomes very hard to track. We want to try and make it not feel a ton like homework. When we first were working on the brackets, we actually made an entire list of mass land denial cards, and we're like, hey, these are the mass land denial cards you shouldn't play. But that was just another list you had to track on top of the Game Changers list. And ultimately, like, playing Magus of the Moon is still not that fun. So we decided to just put it all under mass land denial. I agree that there are different shades of it. I totally agree. But I'll also say that I still don't really want to encounter a lot of these cards in a lot of bracket 2 level games, for example. So. We have no intention of super changing that. I will say that in the original article, the description was takes away 4 or more lands, generally takes away 4 more lands from each player, which I think is still a good one to follow, and kind of why there's this new card in Edge of Eternity's Commander called Planetary Bombardment. And it's kind of why we're like, oh, that one's a lot more okay, because it's probably not going to blow up 4 lands per player, right? It's going to take 2 or 3 lands away. Maybe one player gets hit for 4 lands that was ramping.
It lets you keep 6 lands,
Right,
each player keeps 6 lands,
So that is, by the way, another great example of why having precons tied to bracket 2 was a bit of messaging challenge. So yeah, there's that. I also, some people ask me this. I'll just go ahead and say it. I think it would be cool. Like, brackets are still in beta right now. We're not removing the beta tag. I could imagine a world where 5 years from now or longer, precons have what bracket they're at on them, right? You go to the store and you look at the back of the box, and it's a bracket 2 precon, bracket 3 precon, and distancing the precon language from that lets us do that potentially too someday.
Okay, let's go. We're just about out of time, and we have one fun thing to show you at the end of the show. So I want to leave a little bit of time for that. I lost the question.
They're going hard in the paint.
Sorry to the person whose question I was about to read, and then chat moved.
Well, while you're looking for it, I'll just go ahead and say thanks to all of you for following along. I know that the brackets have been an evolving system, and I really appreciate you all giving us your feedback. It's been actually critical in making the decisions we've made today, and it's going to be even more critical going forward. So just thanks to all of you for all that, and I really appreciate it. I'll also say that you, while you're looking for that question, you will hear from us one more time this year likely, not in terms of any major commander level decisions, but as I mentioned in the article last year when we debuted the format panel, every year we're going to kind of have a format panel rotation where some folks will rotate off and a couple new folks will rotate on. And that'll be happening before the end of this year, and so you'll hear from that when it happens. As I said in the article last year, the group will become smaller. We wanted a really large group for this kind of first transitionary year. It'll become a little smaller group moving forward in the years to come. So stay tuned for a little more communication from us there later this year. But you shouldn't expect any format level changes for the rest of the year after this.
All right. Last question that we have time for, and I think it's a good one. I like that you established a game speed for brackets. But do you feel that taking out one player and taking out the whole table are very big differences in power level? So, you talked about players start losing at that turn, but there is a difference between I win the game and one player loses. Yeah,
there is a gigantic difference, and you can only get so granular before it becomes harder and harder to make specifics about. But I'll use a framework that that Ben Wheeler used that I really liked. I love Ben. Shout out to Ben. He's like, what turn, if you died at Craterhoof Behemoth, would you be happy about your game being played, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that's like a framework that I thought was pretty helpful in creating this. So it's like, okay, well, are you satisfied with your commander game if you die at this turn? If the game ends on this turn for you specifically, are you satisfied? And so if you've played 6 turns and someone kills you on their 7th turn, are you satisfied with your experience? You feel like you have to do a bit of your thing, you have to interact with the game. That's kind of the question we wanted to ask here.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the framework I would think about it as is, and the article goes into this a little bit more, but are you satisfied with how that's turned out? So that's how I think about it for yourself. And if you're satisfied killing everybody on your turn 7, then great, that's awesome. I might have a bracket for you. we also want to be clear that that's not the turn we expect for games to end, right? That is when it can start happening. I do not want to say every bracket 3 games should start ending on turn 7. That is not the intention, or every should start dying on turn 7. It is, what turn would you be satisfied if you lost the game at that bracket? So we welcome your feedback, though. Right? This is our first time rolling out this. We heard from a lot of people out there. They wanted some kind of turn indicator. Kind of what I found is some people are like, I could never tell you what turn my game ends on. And some people are like, I know exactly what turn my game ends on. And so we're all about giving tools to people, right? And like anything else in the arsenal of Commander brackets, this is a tool in your pocket to be able to talk about as you are sitting down to play your game of Commander.
All right, I still see more fantastic questions, thoughts, feedback, all of that stuff in chat. We would love it if you would head to the official Magic Discord and share some of those thoughts there. Share them with us on social media. I know Gavin reads everything. So head there to do that. A couple other things. Again, as I said, there's Command Fest Las Vegas this weekend if you want to check that out and are able to get there. Next week, we have a big show because we have the After the Debut show for Avatar The Last Airbender.
Ooh, it's going to be awesome.
Really exciting set. Super exciting. So the debut is next Tuesday. Before we get to that, we have one short video featuring my former co-host, actually from this very show years ago. So let's hand it over to Steve Suneman, see what he has to say about Secret Lair.
When working with a partner on Magic products, it's important we take into consideration their wants and needs. Sometimes that means making sure that the talent depicted on the card is okay with how we're depicting them. But that can come with some challenges.
Hello, my name is Green Sleeves, former Planeswalker, current Morrow Sorcerer on Dominaria, and the star of the Play-Doh Secret Lair drop.
Star is a strong word. I'm not sure I would say that.
Well, taking time away from my work in the Whispering Woods was tough, but I found the Secret Lair team a delight to work with.
She was interesting to work with. I didn't think an ages-old elemental would be so particular.
Oh, I think you need to just make my hair a few shades greener.
I mean, it looks pretty accurate to me.
Remind me, which one of us has 3 novels written about them?
I'll change the color.
A massive part of this was working with newer faces on the scene, like Wormcoil Engine, Academy Manufactor, and Polyraptor. Getting to mentor them was a really great experience.
Oh, they were way easier to work with, especially the Polyraptor, and the second Polyraptor, and the third Polyraptor, and the fourth.
Lending my talents to the Secret Lair team was a really moving experience.
This last part is like...
For them, I assume.
It was exhausting. It was frustrating. But it was all worth it. It's a really great Secret Lair drop.
Yeah, I don't know about that. All right, it's finished. I think it's done. All right, cool. All right, so that just happened. Now, on to my thoughts. So I think that there should only be 3 brackets, like beginners, intermediate, and then masters or whatever. It should be pre-cons for beginners and slight changes. Then you go into modifications, which would be intermediate, which will have like combos and stuff like that, but won't have commanders in the command zone that are combo related. So you won't have like Chatterfang, or you won't have VV, or you won't have anything that can combo out in your command zone, right? Then you go into CDH will be difficult. So everyone has their own thing. And then difficult won't have a ban list, or they'll have a very minor ban list. Intermediate would have the ban list that, you know, or that you're stating, but it won't be limited to what it is. Like, it won't be limited to like, oh, how many turns you're gonna win on, or whatever the case may be. If you're playing Magic, you should know that this game was made so you can win. So you fight someone and your goal is to win, right? When you sit down and play a game, your goal is to win with the deck that you put your hard blood, sweat, and tears into, which is how I go into it. I do love the gathering aspect, but I do have a competitive mindset when it comes to Magic, and I honestly want to win. With that being said, there shouldn't be any complaints about cards or how expensive your deck is or whatever the case may be, because there's people who are proxying it, right? Who are playing the cards, right? So I think that all the beginners, which would be precons and minor changes to your decks, would have like the ability to play cards, but not add the game changers and everything else in it. And then the middle bracket, which would be intermediate, won't have like a huge like limit or complaints or like these salty events in the beginning. And then your difficult will be no holds barred. Because I think that the more tutors you add, the more things you get to get a single item is what makes your deck faster or more competitive. Also, I think that the mind state of a player also should add to the power level that they play in. So like you'll be able to know and maneuver through decks that you never had before because you're already aware of other brackets or more cards or more of Magic. I feel like they have almost enabled people to make complaints where there shouldn't be. All right, if you are not happy with the outcome of your game, change the way you play or add more interaction. Everyone has the same 99 slots to add or remove cards to help them win the game. If your game isn't working, there's probably something wrong with how you're playing it. I'm not saying this like I'm the perfect player, but I'm saying it as someone who loves the game. And, I do make mistakes, but I know that the capability of what I'm trying to do. So just with that being said, I think it's awesome that they're doing this. I think that they made EDH the biggest format and they should give it its flowers. So there should be events in every bracket. So there should only be 3 brackets. There should be beginners, intermediate, and then experts or difficulty or captains or magicians or whatever case you want to call the last one. And then that will involve everything in CDH for the 3, and the intermediate will involve any kind of decks you make, whatever it is, besides the beginners. The beginners are only going to be precons and like minorly changed decks. And people just have to like stop crying, like face the facts. Like the game is about winning and having fun. Like if that's not what's happening, then pack it up and do something else. Like I'm tired of people complaining, right? And everyone swears they're the best. Everyone has their my deck is supposed to do this, or I can win next turn. Bro, if you didn't win, don't tell me what you was gonna do, because it never got there. Like any deck can win if they have the perfect set of cards. Any deck can win. A precon can win in turn 2 if they have the exact set of cards to win. So people need to stop crying about what happens during a game and just enjoy the game for what the game is. I love Magic, you love Magic, so let's play Magic. So stay positive, stay blessed, stay connected by Magic. Don't hate Superman. Let's get this right. I'm trying to get involved more with the community. I don't want to keep on doing what everyone's doing. Like everyone just gives things out to get people's attention. Like everything's like, oh look, I got 1,000 followers, follow me. I need to, like, I want it to be different. I want people to stop doing this. I think this is crazy. Like just they're clip-on mics. Just put the mic on. I think people are just stuck doing the same thing. Like pack openings or car openings, showing the game. Like, show your interaction, show how you playing with people, show what's up. Like let's move from what is already being done and push the fold. Like, people are getting mad because of Universes Beyond, but that's because Magic is pushing the fold, and you can't be mad at that. So yeah, I keep on talking.